Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Deja Vu Survival where we look at an old world with new eyes. My name is Glitch. Well, that which I greatly feared has come upon me. In the last episode I introduced you to Dewey the Mending Librarian and made a comment how I want to do a future episode about the mechanics of trading and professions. Before that, however, I do want to have a few things ready for a few redstone farms for some cash items. Or better put, renewable items that can be sold to level up villagers as well as buy the things they sell. Now that means that I'm going to need a good bit of building materials, redstone components, and items to get those farms going. So I came home and tried to take stock of what I had. And though I've tried to live in denial about it, it's time to come clean about my organizational deficiency. Because as I looked for materials, I realized that I have random chests of stuff everywhere. Cue the montage. I've got random chests upstairs in my base, downstairs in my base, on the balcony, on the porch, in the garden, built into my farms, in the barn, on the back of my donkey. Hey, wait a minute. You know, a tame llama can be equipped with a chest. Moving on. I've got random chests in my mining base. At the start of my branch mine. At the end of my branch mine. In the new branch mine I just started. At the strip mine that I haven't touched since episode 11. Inside my house at the village. Outside my house at the village. In the far corner of the village where I'd like to put some farms. On this side of the portal. On the other side of the portal. Next to the ruin portal. At the start of my netherite mine. You know, I was relatively certain that I left one down here with a bunch of wool and wood. Is it any wonder I can never find anything? So today, I want to tackle getting a storage system together. First, because though I do love mining, the resources you find don't do anything useful if they never leave the mine. Second, because I have found that I am slowly expanding my skills as a builder. And as we look to future episodes and bigger projects, I don't think the storage we set up here in episode 13 is going to be adequate for the long term. Now the first step is to decide where the storage is going to be. I'm planning for space for bulk storage, valuable storage, and item disposal. Basically, bulk storage is for the items that I usually need to have in large quantities. Things like dirt, gravel, sand, wood, stone, cobblestone. Now for those kinds of items, you may want to look into setting up some sort of an item sorter. Because then you can just chuck everything into an input chest and let the redstone do the work for you. Alongside with the bulk storage, I'm planning on some manual storage. For other items that I want to have on hand, but I don't think that I would ever fill a double chest with. This would include things like building materials, mob drops, and of course, redstone supplies. As well as items that make sense to store together, but have a bunch of variants, like wool or concrete. Now, while all of these items are useful, there are some items that are either valuable in-game or just valuable to you personally as a player. And part of the fun of Minecraft is that it is an open world, and if you want to display your treasures, you can totally do that. So just for fun, I want to add in a treasure vault to the Cleft 2.0. Lastly, we're also going to look at the other end of the spectrum and look at item disposal, because there are some items that you just wind up with an overabundance of, and you just want to clean up a bit. Now that we have a preliminary plan in place, let's look at the main storage room. Now, while I do have a layout in mind, I do want to point out that this video is not meant as a masterclass in organization, but rather as something to get you thinking about how you would want to get set up. And also, in the interest of time, I'm going to do the actual digging off camera. Someday, I would love to do what many YouTubers do and live stream the grind work. But at this time, I don't have the room to get that set up, so that's a goal for the future. Now, before you do start your storeroom, I would recommend grabbing a pen and paper and planning out what you want to store. Because one of the frustrations of these projects was that I kept thinking of items that I use and then I had to figure out where to fit them in. Now, I've decided to put the storeroom off the kitchen. That way, it will be close to the front door, but also it will allow me to use some of the space we have here in this mountain to hollow it out and leave the Cleft 2.0 as a somewhat hidden in plain sight kind of base. So I'm going to go ahead and get things set up for the main storeroom, and I will be right back. And we're back, and it is now several days later because this project turned out to be way bigger than I originally anticipated. But coming back our hallway, we have our storage system all set up, and I will admit that only part of this system is automated. It's set up with the bulk storage here on the right-hand side and the manual storage here on the left-hand side. For the bulk storage, I used a design from Silent Whisperer, and I will leave a link to his tutorial if you want to build one of these yourself. But no matter whose design you used, this kind of auto sorter is extremely resource hungry. This system alone, which you can see I laid in the concrete powder to kind of demarcate the different categories that I came up with. But this system here, with only this side and only the dark blue concrete being auto-sorted, this system alone took over 6 stacks of iron and to craft all the hoppers and the pistons, as well as roughly 10 stacks of wood for all of the chests I needed, plus the fact that each one of the hoppers takes a chest. Is it worth it? Totally. But I want to be upfront with you that this is a big project to tackle. And the auto sorter, I left this kind of open. The auto sorter is pretty ubiquitous. It's got a hopper going into a comparator, which is going into a mechanism out back. And then what happens is this hopper that's running into the comparator has some filler items and then 41 of whatever you want to store in there. So whenever you get more of that particular item in, it can pass through and it unlocks the redstone torch, and then it goes through into the chest at the bottom. Now again, like I said, the Silent Whispers tutorial is far better at. He does a far better job of explaining this than I can, and I'm going to go ahead and fill this in just because I originally just left this open so that I could kind of show the system. But the way the system actually winds up working is you have, go ahead and oops, that and I'll pick that up later. So you have an input chest up here at the top, and then you feed anything into there, and then it runs down this hopper line across the top. Each one of the chests that is in dark blue has one of those systems behind it, so it will automatically sort it. So let's just go ahead and grab some cobblestone, and we'll grab some dirt. So now if we come up here and we throw this into the chest, and I'm going to throw that smooth stone in because that is not auto-sorted in. What that does is, you'll see here that it's flowing in, but none of it is coming into the stone chest. Neither is it going in there or there, but when the dirt, when all the cobblestone is in. Let's go ahead, and it was a stack, so it should be just about done in a second or two. Now that that's done, you'll see that the dirt starts filtering in down here. Silent does a better job than I can do of explaining how all this works, and like I said, there will be a link in the description for his tutorial, as well as he also in the same video covers up a lot of variants about how this can be done. Now, to briefly explain the system, I truthfully prefer using signs to color coding, but I figured I would leave in the concrete powder to just kind of show off the different categories that that I came up with as I thought this through. I left this area over here empty because the potions lab is actually only about 7 or 8 blocks in that direction. So there might be room for like an auto sorter out there someday down the road, but we'll cover that in the future. So, like I said, the blue is all of our bulk storage, and what I do with bulk storage is I tend to mix in a little bit of manual storage as well. That's why you see the light blue. We'll explain that in just a second. So when you come down, it's sorted by material type and how often I wind up using it. So you start off with the basics like stone, cobblestone, sand, gravel, dirt, grass blocks, because the grass blocks have a separate chest because I tend to use a silk touch shovel, therefore I wind up with a lot more grass blocks. Then for the nether, I tend to keep, though it may seem a little odd, I tend to keep a lot of netherrack around, and also a lot of basalt for filler, and also for a little bit of building. And then, of course, there's blackstone, which is my favorite block from the current the nether. So I tend to keep a good bit of that around as well. Now, then we start moving down into the stone types that I like, but that don't use near as much. Things like andesite, and granite, and diorite. And I also left a couple of spaces free for the new stone types that are supposed to be coming in 1.17. Things like, I believe it's calcite and the dripstone. Now, these can be changed later, and if I wind up using one of them more than the other, I'll probably just swap that in. And if you wanted to, I'm going to grab a piece of dirt here. Some of these you will notice aren't placed down with the auto sorting, and all we have to do here is, where's my axe? I forgot my axe. Grab that. I'll borrow one from there. And the main difference is if you wind up not putting it in, all you do is leave out the comparator and that hopper, and because there's a hopper line running in the block above it, the items will just run down. And as you noticed, if anything winds up in the system that doesn't belong there, there is some overflow down here that will catch it. And then if you want to add in that as auto-sorted storage, you can just add in the comparator and the get that in there, the comparator and the hopper for that particular slot, and I left everything hooked up. Now that's the stone types covered. After that we have wood, and as I said before, we actually dug this out. I tend to mix a tiny bit of manual storage in with my bulk storage, because whenever you load a chest from a hopper, it always fills from the top. But for me, it seems to make more sense to keep things like oak, birch, and spruce, which are the 3 most common woods that I use, with their planks with them. So we have the oak here, and even if we filled this chest up, it will just simply overflow into the chest above it. Now, the 4 woods I use the most are oak, birch, spruce, and I do use jungle when I have it available. And right now I actually just have in I think it's the top chest here, the materials to go ahead and auto sort that. I've noticed that the Wandering Trader has saplings as a part of his his trade tables now. So I've been every time I see him trying to just stop what I'm doing, check if he has jungle saplings or also dark oak saplings, and then I'll go ahead and buy one, and I can start slowly building up some saplings and then farm that as time goes on. Now, because I don't use these dark oak or acacia for much more than accent woods, I keep those with a single chest apiece, as well as the nether variants with the crimson and warped stems. And then, like I said, down at the end, there's a overflow chest in case anything gets into the system. Then it'll just simply flow down into this chest, which will also keep it from gumming up the works in the background. Now, if we come back down and look at the left-hand side of the room at our manual storage, here while these are not as specific, they still have kind of categories of their own. The yellow chests are all building materials. These are mostly for blocks that I have left over after a building project, like stairs or slabs, walls, fences, doors and trapdoors. And they're also some of the things that I keep around, uh, things like glass or the stained glass, terracotta, and also I tend to also keep things like wool and concrete. Concrete may seem a little obvious because it is a building material, but also wool stays right next to it because of the fact that those are things I like to use within redstone designs, just for showing me which circuit it does what and color coding things as I go along. Now, moving down, then the orange chests are all raw materials. Now, these are things that either allow us to make things or change the way they look. So, for example, we have things like iron and iron, quartz, and also copper and amethyst, which are due to come in 1.17, which are both raw materials and needed for making things. But then you have things like dye, which will affect both the concrete, the wool, or can affect the wool, but mostly the concrete and also glass. But it allows us to change the way it looks. I also tend to keep fuel right here with the raw materials because of the fact that fuel, like coal, lava buckets, blaze rods, bamboo, when we can get a hold of it, are needed to smelt down the iron or any of the other metals, as well as to smelt down things like glass. Now, redstone, that gets its own category. And I keep that with two things. One, the redstone ore blocks, because I tend to, when I'm mining, I use a silk touch for inventory management. So I've got lots of redstone ore, as well as the blocks of redstone and the redstone dust itself, and then a whole chest of the different redstone components that I'll wind up using. The green chests are exploration supplies, and these are things that help me to explore. Things like backup tools and gear. And in time, when we have an elytra, we'll store things for fireworks in this area. As well as I like to keep transportation here. These are things like saddles and boats. And I also tend to keep mine carts and rail supplies here right next to the redstone, since rail and mine carts are often used within redstone farm builds. And also, I do keep things like trading supplies. These are some of the basic items that are farmable and also that you wind up with that you can trade with villagers as you have the ability to. And then the gray chests are all things that are exploration blocks or items themselves. First off, we have things like plants and saplings. These are the items that I'll find as I explore. Mob drops for both passive and hostile mobs, and that I find, and then a couple of chests for each one of the dimensions we have with the overworld, the nether, and the end, and then a little bit of room for some expansion as we go along. Now, this pretty much covers the regular items, and I think next thing I'm going to do is take the concrete out and replace it with a stone brick so it doesn't look like a kaleidoscope in here. But this takes care of everyday items. What about the stuff that's special? Because right now, all of my valuables are stuffed in these chests in my bedroom. Or are they? You see, while I was digging out the storeroom, I took a little extra time to add a little storage for our special items. So if I can trust you with the secret, may I present you with the vault? Okay, so it's not too impressive, especially since all we have in here is a few extra bits of armor and some tools. If, however, we come over and change the position of our sword, which, by the way, is the first stone sword we ever had in the game, and check again, the true vault is opened, and we can come back into our treasure vault. Now, your treasure vault will be something that is distinctly your design, and it's also something to give you a chance to preserve some of the memories of your adventures. Things like your first set of armor, or or some armor you found, the first wither skull. Now, something I like to do is I like to add in a display of the different ores within the game. I do have a couple of placeholder blocks because we have coal, iron, redstone, lapis, nether quartz, nether gold, gold, diamonds, and ancient debris. And I left a couple of placeholders here, the green being for emerald ore and the black being for gilded blackstone. And yes, I understand that I'm in a single player world and there's no reason to worry about someone coming in and stealing my stuff. But a treasure vault is just one of those things that's just part of the fun and the adventure of the game. And incidentally, if you're curious how the secret entrance works, I'll leave a link in the description to my tutorial on how to build it. I came up with the design a while back, and the original was actually my first Redstone build. I've learned a lot about Redstone since then, and the newer version is a bit more compact. But I hope you find it fun. Now, granted, this room is not complete, but then again, in a sandbox game like Minecraft, nothing truly ever is. But at this point, I'm still playing around with the final design, and I'm sure that we'll find ourselves back in this room as Deja Vu Survival continues, and we find more things and more memories of the adventures we encounter. But now that we have our system storage system sorted out, and our valuables ready to be tucked away, it's time to deal with what's left. Meaning it's time to take out the trash. I've said in the past that I tend to do a lot of fishing for XP, and while that does give me some decent loot, it also leaves me with more cod than I could ever eat, and more fishing rods than I could ever use. So I needed a way to get rid of these things. Now, in truth, the simplest method for these is to just take the item out and throw it down and just wait for it to despawn. Or you can get a flint and steel and you can light it on fire. This, however, makes a mess or could possibly set your house on fire. So I prefer to be able to place the items in a chest and say goodbye. Now, things like the fish I still cook down for the XP you can get from smelting them. But most trash cans within the game work on having the items, and we're just going to break down in here because we have out here on the deck a redstone trash can. So we have a couple of items in there. I smelted up a little cactus for the green dye, but all we have to do with this is simply flick this lever, and then the items will drop into this hopper, and let's just jump back here a little bit, break out a couple of these blocks so we can see. Items will go into a dropper, and there's a redstone circuit down here that will send them into the cactus. And like I said in the last episode, anything that touches cactus will be instantly destroyed. But so they'll be fired out of this, and then they'll be gone forever. And then all of our trash is taken care of. Now these can be done with either lava or cactus. But if you want to build one for yourself, there's a link in the tutorial to the description on how to build this particular type of item disposal. But with all that being said, I think the only thing left for me to do is to take that list of random chests from page 1 of my notes and go and find all of my stuff. Because next time, we are heading back to the village to start work on making a trading center, and hopefully work on upgrading a little of our gear with some help from our friends that go, huh. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like, and also consider subscribing if you want to see more content like this. My name is Glitch, and I do hope I'll see you next time for the next episode of Deja Vu Survival. Thanks for watching.